Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Emma Whiteman. I'm a senior content marketer and tech writer at Triumvirate Environmental. I'm so excited to be your moderator for today's Decontamination Methods for Facilities: What, Why, How, and When webinar. So before we get started, I'd like to share that everyone's mics and cameras will be turned off for the entirety of the webinar. You can use the questions tab on the right of your screen to communicate with us and ask us questions if you have any. Please also keep in mind that you will receive a copy of the slide deck and recording in the days following the event conclusion if your question goes unanswered. I'll also share contact information for our presenters at the end of the event, should you need to reach out to us. I'm very pleased to introduce today's speakers, Damian Luna and James Sullivan. Damian Luna is BSc Test Plus Technical Services Manager at Triumvirate Environmental. With almost 2 decades of EHS industry experience, he is Triumvirate Environmental's technical expert for primary barrier equipment, clean rooms, and associated spaces. He holds accreditations from the National Sanitation Foundation for BSc services and from the Controlled Environment Testing Association for sterile compounding facilities and clean room services. James Sullivan is Triumvirate Environmental's BSc Test Plus and Operations Manager with 8 years of experience in life sciences, healthcare, and related industries. In his current role, Sullivan specializes in supporting clients through the maintenance, certification, and decontamination of key lab equipment in both the public and private sectors. So with that, I'm very pleased to turn it over to Damian and James.
Hey everyone, I'm James Sullivan. I'm going to be here speaking through Damian's mic just really briefly. Just a quick cameo on my end, and then Damian's going to be taking on a majority of the presentation with me here for support. So thank you, Emma, for the very nice, friendly introduction. I'll just go ahead and give a little bit more. So BSc Test Plus and Operations Manager here at Triumvirate, really heading up the BSc services here and trying to both engage with our clients, improve our services, and continuously expand our services. And I have Damian Luna here, who is my technical services manager. He has been in the industry for 20 plus years, really knows the in and outs of everything, and I'm very proud to have him on my team. With that being said, I'm going to pass this over to Damian, and I'll be here primarily as support.
All right, great. Thank you, James. And thank you all for attending. While today we would like to take the time to introduce some of the most commonly used products for surface, room, and duct decontaminations, and to go over some of the pluses and minuses of each. Then we would like to introduce a product that many of you may not know much about. IHP has been around for some time, but like all things new, they take some time to gain momentum and identification in the marketplace. So hopefully we present enough for you to walk away feeling that you need all you need to know about the newer technology and our services utilizing all we present here. Okay, go ahead. Next slide. All right, so we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about infection control and some of our decontaminations. So a key part to remember with decontaminations is that this is a multi-step process, and generally the best solution is not a single solution, but a planned approach. So TEI offers services in all steps of this process, from planning to decommissioning. And my biggest obvious ask is to eliminate, we're going to go ahead and start from the beginning here, is to eliminate all trash that could be thrown away. So when we're looking to decontaminate your space, the very first thing is eliminate all the trash. And then none of these methods I'm presenting work to their best ability with bulk items like the dreaded cardboard. So definitely all cardboard for any of our decontamination processes need to be removed. Microorganisms love cardboard and is the bane of all contamination control measures. So if you do not need the cardboard, eliminate it. So as you can see on the slide here, probably the first step is going to be you got your cleaning. Second step would be your disinfection, and your third step would be your sterilization. Next slide, please. All right, so we're going to go over the overview of decontamination strategies. So listed are the tried and true disinfectants and sterilants. While yes, there are more than what is listed here, we had to condense this list a little bit. So I'm sure nearly everyone attending this webinar has used a few of these either at home or work. So hopefully the ones on the bottom are a little more exotic to most of you. because obviously some of them honestly are kind of a little more technical and a little harder to implement. So we're taking a two-tiered approach, going over the commonly used products. So remember, and then the three on the bottom here, those are the types of decontamination we're going to be involved in: cleaning, disinfection, and sterilization. And it's going to represent the increasing levels of microbial removal from basic dirt removal down to eliminating all microbes. Next slide, please.
Awesome. So thanks, Damien. Right now we're going to do our first poll. So we did a quick overview, obviously, of these decontamination methods, but now we're going to ask you which of the following decontamination methods your facility uses. And please feel free to select all that apply. Just open the poll, so get some answers in. The options are cold sterilant, bleach, and alcohol, VHP, chlorine dioxide, IHP, and other, or you're not sure. So still have a ton of answers coming in, James and Damien. I'm going to leave this open just a little bit longer here.
Great. Yeah, I can see.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Okay. Looks like we're slowing down here. So it looks like we had 83% of respondents said that they use cold sterilant, bleach, or alcohol. 22% said VHP. 8% said chlorine dioxide, 7% said IHP, and 27% said other, or they weren't sure. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Great. So, all right. So then, obviously, sounds like a lot of you are going to be familiar with our first up to deck here. It's going to be the Spore Cleanse. So this is a great sterilant, very common in clean room environment. It's going to be known for smelling horrible. Ideally cycled with similar products to prevent microbial resistance. It can be very corrosive. So a recommendation would be diluting with sterile water after application. And as you can see, it's EPA registered as a sporicidal, so that's probably the #1 reason why most people are using it. Again, the smell, and it's highly corrosive, so it's definitely something that you're gonna want to hit with water after. So we'll move on to, and please forgive me, we have quite a few slides here, so I'm gonna kind of move through some of these. I wish I could do a little deeper dive on a lot of these, so we're just gonna kind of graze the surface, but that way we could get to some of your questions at the end here. So we'll go on to the next slide here. It's going to be 10% bleach. So this is going to be probably the one that most people will have a mix of next to the Spore Cleanse. It's going to be another tried and true disinfectant, very effective when used properly. A key note going back to the previous slide is ideally you want to remove any kind of heavy soiling before you apply the 10% bleach, because it really isn't all that great if you have a lot of gunk on your surfaces. But once you remove that gunk, then essentially the 10% bleach is going to work pretty great. So like most items on this list, the most effective they are is going to the more corrosive they can be. So a recommendation of sterile water applied after applying this would be what you'd want to do to avoid oxidation of metals. So again, it's a sporicidal. It's going to be used typically on your hard surfaces and any kind of biological spill decontaminations. And remember that it's inactivated with any kind of organic matter. It doesn't do too well, so you're going to want to remove any kind of heavy gunk or any kind of organic matter there. Next slide, please. 70% isopropyl alcohol. This is probably everyone's used this, maybe at home too as well. That's one of the items used here. Is probably the most common. It's used in most industries as a general surface disinfectant due to its low odor. It evaporates relatively quickly at this concentration and leaves surface residues free. So that's probably going to be one of the key things to this, is that it doesn't really leave a residue. Obviously, some people will use maybe up to a 91%. It really all depends on your industry, what you're going to use. It's compatible with most services, so it makes it a go-to for just about everyone. Although it's the most common, it's also a common misconception that it kills bacterial spores. So that's one of the kind of the downsides to utilizing the isopropyl alcohol. Its application may remove the contaminant when wiped away, but should not be confused with a kill. So it's not a sporicidal. So that's one of the key things. So residue-free, broad compatibility. It's going to be able to use on all kinds of surface. So it's great, but it does have its limitations. Next slide, please. All right, so taking a step now into some of the gaseous decontaminations methods. So here's going to be tried and true. Some of those of us, such as myself, that have been in the industry a little while, formaldehyde gas. It's going to have an extended contact time, so you can see the 12 to 24 hours. I'm not going to go too in depth about it, but yeah, it worked great. I've used this extensively doing small scale decontaminations, large scale decontaminations with this product in the past. But due to being a carcinogen, I'd highly recommend moving your processes away from this if possible. Right now, I'm currently out on the East Coast, but when I was in the West Coast, definitely was a big no-no. Some of our competitors actually got fined for using this when decontaminating biological safety cabinets. So definitely, if you're in California, you want to definitely stay away from this. So out of all the items I mentioned, if I had to choose one which I would not want to be exposed to, it's going to be this one. And having been exposed to it, it's very scary. So we used about 0.3 grams per volume extensive. Safety precautions would need to be observed when utilizing this. I do get it. This has been around forever, but historically it's kind of been the standard method. But honestly, there's better solutions out there than formaldehyde gas, and that's kind of why we're presenting this today, to kind of get into some of those. Next slide, please. All right, so let's go to another tried and true. That's definitely I'm very familiar with the clean room industry and vapor hydrogen peroxide, namely 35%. So anyone that works in the clean room, especially the fill lines, would be familiar with this. It's great for whole room decontaminations. But at this concentration, there are a number of serious safety considerations that need to be accounted for. In the past life, I ran a number of products utilizing this method. The space conditioning is key to its effectiveness. Ideally, you'd want to get your humidity to as close to around 20% as possible. Anything above that, you reach the potential of reaching a vapor saturation of the space. So where now it's not essentially a vapor anymore. Now it's just pretty much just droplets all over your wall. Space mixing can be challenging to distribute this. So you need a lot of mixing fans to kind of move it around, especially since it's so concentrated and it doesn't mix as well. So if you get the humidity wrong, it could lead to peeling of paint off the walls and equipment. So I don't know if any of you have experienced that, but essentially that is definitely one of the downsides to utilizing this. And in some cases, while generating, it could also be explosive. So depending on how you're introducing it to your space, there's a potential to where it could get down to a concentrated enough level to where you could it could go off like an M80. So at 35%, the dissipation as far as the concentration in the space when you're trying to vent it is going to be a lot slower. This is a process that should not be approached lightly. Although very effective, the process could lead to condensation on surfaces and it could leave a residue. So all this has led us to find a solution that addresses these issues. So again, extensive use. I've used it quite a bit in the past. I know a lot of clients that have used it in the past. It does a great job, but it does have some drawbacks to utilizing it. Next slide, please. My old friend, chlorine dioxide. So like hydrogen peroxide, it's a great disinfectant that's used industry-wide, has a broad application commercially, but as a true gas, it works great in getting to all those hard-to-reach spaces. It's our go-to for long duct runs when we're decontaminating ductwork, when that type of decontamination is needed. But I can't stress enough, containment, containment, containment. As a true gas, can be hard to, when you set it off, when you introduce it into your space, it's really, it travels really well. So it's definitely, it's not for the layman, so to speak. It can be used for rooms and spaces, but because it travels really well, it's hard to control. Well-trained personnel are mandatory in its application. I kind of like to explain it to clients like it's kind of like the nuclear option. It definitely is going to do what it needs to do, but it's really hard to control. So we have extensive experience on its use. It is our primary method for decontaminating biological safety cabinets, or honestly, a lot of your primary engineering controls due to their geometry. You know, a biosafety cabinet is essentially a box that has a lot of, has internal plenums, has a lot of HEPA filters. There's a lot of places where other decontamination methods wouldn't be as effective. The chlorine dioxide is definitely our go-to, especially because we're going to be opening that and typically removing those HEPA filters, changing motors and such. So, and whenever we do that, we always apply a secondary containment due to the fact that it's just, this is no joke. The chlorine dioxide, true gas, works great, but it's definitely difficult to use. And I can't stress enough, you don't want it to get out. So containment, containment, containment. Next slide, please. Now we move on to ionized hydrogen peroxide. So you might ask yourself, wait a minute, we just talked about that 35% hydrogen peroxide. Well, what's the difference? Well, this is there's a newer solution on the block here. 7.8% concentration is not anything new. How it is applied is revolutionary though. So while removal of the bulk trash and application of surface disinfectants are one step for spaces, how we cover the whole room disinfection, so some of the hurdles with the 35% and the chlorine dioxide represent the lead to the search for, basically the chlorine dioxide and the 35% solutions kind of, again, a lot of hurdles to kind of doing that correctly. So it kind of led us to a search for a solution that kind of lowered the bar on some of the dangers and kept the sporicidal solution in effect. So the 7.8% turned out to be the sweet spot for us. And the solution allowed easier distribution of the fog, which allowed for it to travel better throughout our spaces. And the lower concentration has taken care of any kind of residual issue. So the 7.8%, although you would think it's smaller is maybe higher is better, but in this case, and I'm going to explain to you why, that it's definitely nothing to sneeze at. So next slide, please. All right, so we're gonna kind of take a step back for a second here and just compare some of the methods. So, one of the things that our clients have asked us before when we've kind of gone through some of the processes and some of our recommendations on how to approach a decontamination would be, well, couldn't I just do a surface wipe and be done? And the answer is, well, yes, when done correctly, utilizing a strict protocol, and then your team may deem it sufficient, but listed are just a few of the reasons why we would recommend choosing a more balanced approach. So surface wipe, surface decontaminations plus gas, vapor or fog, or the chlorine dioxide, the true gas, would cover your bases and making sure that your spaces or device are truly decontaminated. So where as you can see here on some of our points here, human error, that if you're cleaning something, you can't get into every nook and cranny, which is why you definitely want to apply a mist, a vapor, or a true gas to decontaminate these spaces appropriately. Next slide, please. So if you're going to utilize the chlorine gas, so what would be one of the reasons you would want to? Well, it's number one, the on-site generation is going to be required. So unfortunately, it has very specialized equipment that's needed to generate this. It has a higher setup complexity because you're worried about it escaping the spaces that you're decontaminating. You have to take a lot of time to prep and plan out the way that you're going to introduce it into your facility, and more importantly, how you're going to get rid of it once you get it in there. So the increased implementation cost is definitely going to hinder where some people would want to kind of walk away from utilizing this. Again, it's the nuclear option, but it's not for the faint of heart. Next slide, please. All right, so we're going to move on to the vapor hydrogen peroxide. So this is the 35%. So we're going to kind of compare and contrast here. In the next slide or two, we'll kind of explain where we're going with this. Well, the 35%, again, the high 35% residuals, it leaves a lot of residual. Most of the time when we would apply this, then we would have to go back with some sterile water and wipe down a lot of the surfaces. Yes, it did a good coating. Yes, it did a good kill, but if unfortunately it added additional time to come back and clean a lot of these surfaces or to remove the residuals. The DOT, the Department of Transportation, anything above the 8% here is going to be regulated. You got to be careful on if you're going to go out to jobs, you're going to travel across state lines and such. Then the 35%, technically you're not going to be allowed to be moving it around. Whereas with the 7.8%, then you're allowed. There are no restrictions essentially. So it's going to have the environmental sensitivity. So the performance depends on tight controls. Like again, what I was talking about, the humidity, the temperature. Again, if you don't condition your spaces correctly for this, and that can lead to, for instance, if you're just trying to dehumidify a space, say from 40% down to around 20%, that could take hours, or maybe they could take hours, tens of hours. So definitely to condition the space, that could add a considerable amount of time to the decontamination process. So it's going to take a little longer cycle time because of the exposure periods. 35% is really high. So yes, we got up to that. Got a huge part per ppm level, but now we have to worry about how we get rid of it. It dissipates over time, but since it's so high, it takes a considerable amount of time. So that's definitely some of the kind of the downsides or challenges to using the 35% vapor hydrogen peroxide. So next slide, please. All right, so in this slide, we're going to compare the 35% liquid to the IHP, which is going to be the 7.8%. So as you can see, obviously the concentration on the 35 is higher, yes, the safety level. So you can see 35 is going to be, definitely if you were to touch either, honestly, if you're to touch either or, it's going to leave some whiteness on your hands. But the 35 is definitely going to be much more dangerous if you were to accidentally get exposed to it. Whereas the 7.8% is going to be much safer for operators. You still need to wear your PPE, but definitely it's going to kind of reduce that safety, that risk level. So remember earlier when I was talking about that, like when we're out looking for like, how can we make our workers safer? And then this is definitely kind of caught our attention, is the fact that it was lower and our people would be a little safer. Again, the application. So when you're 35%, because it's higher, then it's more likely to leave a residual on your surfaces, leading to longer decontamination times, or just the fact that you have to get some more manpower in there to kind of remove that, or to kind of apply some sterilized water to remove the concentrations. Whereas with the IHP, with this system, it has a cold plasma, so it has a dry mist. So it's going to go ahead and apply. I've seen it looks beautiful. It applies a nice sheen for a second, and then it just dissipates. It goes away, and it does a great job. Again, the residuals, 35 high, the IHP 7.8. 0 residuals, the spore kill. So this is the proof in the pudding. I'll be honest, when we first started utilizing, this is the part I was a little like, oh, cross me. The science is there, everything, the literature is there. But again, until you use the systems, then you kind of are a little apprehensive. Well, guess what? The BIs came out great. We have a really high BI kill. The only times I think that we've ever had a BI not get kill, it wasn't necessarily because of wasn't because of the actual process. It was because of some of the environmental conditions of the space. And then we kind of had an idea like, hey, we're going to give it a shot, but these conditions are not ideal whatsoever. And then so we were basically able on that one. Honestly, I think we've only had one redo. And again, it was a high volume. There's a lot of airflow in the space. But anyway, getting off topic here, but essentially the 35%, yeah, you could get a sports kill, more risk, 7.8% IHP, DARPA validated, nice. That's going to be the sweet spot, and you get a kill. So next slide here. Oh, looks like we're on to the next poll. Emma?
Yep, so jumping back on here, something we were interested in finding out is if you've ever had to perform a full room decontamination at your site. I launched the poll now, so whether it's a large organization, a lab, a facility, any sort of like full room decon, just want to see what the spread is here. The options are, yes, they've done it multiple times, yes, once or twice, know you haven't done one or you're not quite sure if your facilities had to do that. Interesting to see this all even out. Looks like we have a pretty good amount of results in, so I'm going to end the poll now. It looks like we said 24% of the respondents have done a full room decon multiple times, 28% have done it once or twice, 41% have never done it, and 7% aren't quite sure. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Damien.
All right, so those are some interesting results. Definitely, whether the people, actually, I'm surprised so many people have had to decontaminate their spaces, which would probably explain the interest in this presentation. So, well, here's the star of the show here. Oh, you know what, Emma, can you give me the next slide there? There we go. Here's the star of the show. This is kind of one of the services that we wanted to highlight. While we can do all the other aforementioned services with the chlorine, the chlorine dioxide, we could do all the surface disinfectants. That's definitely kind of our bread and butter. But one of the services that for the whole space decontaminations that we've been implementing is what I've been talking about, the 7.8%. This is called the Tomi-Steramis environment system. So this is something that we've kind of added to our toolbox here. So again, while both chlorine dioxide and vapor hydrogen peroxide solutions, we offer those for our climate, both those for our client, the Tomi-Steramis environment system has been our go-to solution to replace our 35% VHP decontaminations. The mobility, the flexibility of this system allows us to match the needs and configurations of rooms and spaces that weren't designed to be large-scale decontaminated. Because let's be honest, because I've done a lot of these decontaminations, and not all spaces were designed to be decontaminated, but then now the need arises. And this is where that sweet spot, where the 7.8% compared to the 35%, then it allows us to hit these spaces that really weren't designed to be decontaminated, or just the thought wasn't there, but the need is there now. So again, no residuals, no residues, allows us to use this as our go-to room space decontamination system. The ionized hydrogen peroxide is effectively decontaminate spaces, and it's allowing us to achieve the highest kill rate I've ever seen. Again, I've been doing decontaminations, the 35%, the chlorine dioxide disinfections. I've done inline HEPA banks. I've done hundreds of inline HEPA banks with chlorine dioxide. And to be honest, the IHP has really impressed. Adding this solution to our toolbox gives us the confidence to say we can be the one-stop shop for all your space and room decontaminations. So I'm really excited that we've started using this system. Emma, if you could get the next slide, please. All right, so you're kind of asking, well, why is it so effective? Well, it has a 7.8. It may seem a little low, but the proof is in the science here. So the plasma arc that is applied, that's kind of like the secret sauce to this. So yes, it has that 7.8 hydrogen peroxide, but this plasma arc basically allows it to break down the outer shells of spores. So we consistently get a 6-log reduction on the most difficult BI. So we definitely we have a slide or two that's going to represent that. Next slide. All right, so using the systems allowed us to getting flexibility in our decontamination design for whole space decontamination. So I noticed a number of you definitely had more rooms, or you've done it multiple times. Coming from the clean room world, I definitely see where that need could be. I know the dreaded mold. So this has definitely allowed us to tailor your needs to the clean rooms, laboratories, healthcare, high containment, BSL-3, clean room facilities. And then while no system or decontaminate is perfect on its own, we plan a combination of what was presented with your process and your space in mind. So we're going to take all the different surface disinfectants that I mentioned in the beginning. Yeah, some of them have their limitations, some of them have their disadvantages, but when you're combining the surface disinfectants with the IHP or the chlorine dioxide or you name it, then so what we take is essentially we're gonna look to reduce some of the weeks that where it could take where the IHP it's going to allow us to get that done much quicker. Next slide, please. All right, so this slide's very noisy. It's very noisy, I get it, but I had to include it. So essentially, as you can see, it goes from the green, which is going to be the easiest to kill, to the red, which is going to be the hardest to kill. So that's really what we're looking at there. So the slide is, so it's going to show how effective the IHP system is. It's going to work for the green, essentially is going to be things such as HIV and Hep B, and then it goes all the way up to the red, and it's going to tackle some more of those difficult things, such as bacterial spores and protozoa. So as you can see, it kind of hits the full range. Hopefully a lot of you can kind of make this up. Maybe you can squint and see what some of these say on here, but it's definitely the graphic. I wish I could allow me to zoom in a little bit better, but it kind of hits, as you can see, they have fungal right there in the middle, bacteria, non-enveloped viruses, microbacterium, you know, your TBs. It hits the full range. So this is the part that really amazed me on how well this system worked. Okay, Emma, next slide, please. So as you can see here, here's some of the, this is a table that shows some of the industries and common hard to kill items. So IHP demonstrates a 6-log kill and is validated against the toughest microbial categories. So you can see we got on the left, all those different H1N1, ricin, mycotoxins, all these different things. So depending on the different categories that you're in, whether you're in healthcare, whether you're in research, essentially it's become the gold standard in my mind. Yeah, some of the other ones are as effective or work just as good, but they present some hazards that if I could avoid, to be honest, I'd rather avoid. So this is kind of really, I can't stress enough how excited I am about this product. So next slide, please. So one of the things that kind of, whenever we're talking to clients, they're like, okay, it's great, you have all these different ways but will it apply to us? Well, yes. The reality is that all these decontamination methods that kind of gone over here, anywhere from the 10% bleach, the spore cleanse, all the way up to the BSL-3 labs and so on and so forth. We can essentially service all these industries, from healthcare, your life science, your higher education, your emergency preparedness, or even if you just have like a commercial space. So essentially that you need to have maybe you need some remediation or something happening. Maybe you had a roof leak or something, and now you're kind of worried about the state of a certain space. Again, the system, since it's so easy for us to deploy, gives us the flexibility to tackle all these different environments, no problem. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm not gonna kind of go over and read all these slides right here, but you know, everyone obviously could read on this. So, but here's some of the literature of the hydrogen peroxide, and this goes for both. So it's not just the IHP, but hydrogen peroxide in general has made some really serious strides, gotten some really serious traction. The FDA recognition across several industries as early as 2026. So within the past couple of years, a lot of different acknowledgements have been made. So there's this that kind of lists some of them. Next slide, please. So you can see the FDA recent ruling as recent as 2025. They expanded on September 3rd, published a final rule that significantly broadened the permitted use of hydrogen peroxide. Since a lot of this is relatively new, we look forward to partnering with clients and validating this use in their processes and facilities. So, you know, those of you that are still, you know, some clients have said, hey, you know what, we're still using formaldehyde in our process or something. So here you go. Now it's time to begin this, especially with this IHP. I'm really excited to partner with a lot of our clients to try to come up with new decontamination processes to where they can kind of honestly provide a safer alternative to what they're currently using. Next slide, please. So as you can see, it doesn't just stop there. There's vapor hydrogen peroxide. When January 2024, the FDA officially designated hydrogen peroxide as an established Category A sterilization method for medical devices. So again, technology and science marches forward, and with the recent announcements, it moves the industry wide should be to validating and integrating these into their processes. So, things like formaldehyde, ethylene oxide have their use. I'm not going to lie, they definitely, there's probably going to be some industries where it's just not feasible to move away from these. But for those that are, and the clients that are willing to make that leap, then that's what we're looking to partner with to help them explore these options. So then that way we can find alternative solutions. And I think the IHP is a worthy contender to definitely run a validation through. Next slide, please. Again, some of the key certifications, and I thought I'd throw this on there, is the EPA and the FDA is getting on board. So as you can see, and it extends beyond the pond. So you can see just recently, as of February 2026, IHP's received an official biocidal authorization in Great Britain and Northern Ireland for room fogging and surface disinfection in healthcare and industrial sectors. So as you can see, it's not just here in the United States that we're utilizing this. It looks like it's internationally, it's starting to gain some traction. So that's why we're really excited to get this presentation out there and to kind of make people aware of it. Yes, introduce you some of the tried and truths, because to be honest, we're still utilizing, that's not going anywhere. Some of those are not going anywhere, but with a mixed use approach, then that way you can make sure you completely decontaminate your spaces. And with this is just going to make it that much safer. Next slide, please. So some of the key takeaways that we're getting a little on. Oh, actually, we did pretty good time here. So hopefully I wasn't watching. I was telling James, hey man, make sure that I'm not rushing through this too quickly, because I tend to kind of talk fast. But the key takeaways are going to be, as you can see, we're excited to present to you some of the tried and true, and as well as some of the new decontamination methods and systems on the market today. And we look forward to partnering with you to find the solutions to achieve your goals. So you can see the IHP, it's faster, it's safer, more effective, and it's adaptable. So we definitely wanted to bold and make that like this is something, because I know that is one of the key things that James and I deal with on a daily basis. Is a lot of clients have these timelines, which I get it. We all have schedules. You need to get the movers in. You need to get you essentially you have a vacate by a certain time. You still got research to do, and that's what our goal is. We're trying to find and bring to you, our clients, our potential clients, solutions to kind of work with what your schedule, your processes, what you feel safe with, and make you aware of some alternative solutions that can really move the needle for your organization. This next slide, please. And the one key thing to, we're talking about a lot of this stuff. The one thing that probably was obvious to everyone is a lot of these things are dangerous, no doubt. Real quick story, little sidebar. My wife she was using bleach and decided, hey, you know what? I'm just going to use a little vinegar here. And I'm like, what did you just make? You made some chlorine gas. Like, it's great. I know you want it to be kind of like a little green there, but you just essentially I thought I smelled something like, well, I've smelled that before. I'm like, what did you make? So experience matters. So make sure. So again, we cannot leave this presentation without recognizing the reason we are even talking about decontaminations. And again, it's safety. So as you have seen, many of these decontamination methods are dangerous. The complexities extend beyond what we talked about today. The heating, the ventilation system that serve the spaces need to be considered. The size of the spaces, the timeline, the equipment, all the reason to choose a vendor that has performed this work. So has tested and validated in the engineering controls that make up your facilities and spaces that we are decontaminating. So essentially we have decades of experience testing and certifying a lot of your clean rooms, your fill lines. That was pretty much my bread and butter. And could have spent, we could have spent more time kind of delving into some of the HVAC issues here. And honestly, if some of you, I know at the end there might be some questions that maybe you want to leave and submit for us. So if you're interested in us kind of talking about some of the HVAC considerations, some of the pressurization considerations, or just in general, like say, hey, we have this space, we're thinking about this. James and I have a lot of experience in biotech, in pharmaceutical manufacturing. So any of that, we're talking about decontaminations today, but trust us, our experience goes way beyond that. So again, just whatever it is, we love to talk to you. Okay, next slide, please. Again, so we feel you are unique so your decontamination strategy should be a custom solution unique to you. So becoming your trusted partner is our goal, and working as a team to help you hit your goals. Let us wow you. So that's kind of concludes our presentation today. I got it in right on the 40-minute mark there. So that's great. I think at this point, we'll kind of open it up to some of, I think Emma has maybe some questions, or if any of you had any questions, we'd be more than happy to take this time to answer them for you.
Yeah. And Emma, if I can just jump in real quick. First of all, Damien, I'm using Damien's mic. I don't want to have an echo here. But first of all, Damien, great job. You presented that very well. I know that we just threw a ton of information at everyone. So just to reiterate what Emma said earlier, we will be sharing the slides. That's why we made them a little bit denser so that you'd have the info. We'll also share a one-pager, which has a very nice graphic. I hope you like it. I just want to jump in and kind of say, to Damien's point, that we do have a ton of experience in this space, and it does extend far beyond decontamination. I was an end user in biotech. I was a researcher. I went through an IPO. I have a patent. I've developed white papers. I've published papers. So I entirely understand how this feels from both the end user as a researcher and the end user as facility and lab operations management. So I say that to say that we really do want to partner with you and to help you find the right solution. And then, of course, we have Damien's 20 years plus of experience being the Wizard of Oz in this industry. Truly has been behind the curtain of many, many, many hospitals, biotechs, East, West Coast, all over. So I think we bring a really unique offering with our experience here and our honestly, our desire to just have a strong, healthy healthcare biotech system. Selfishly, I was born and raised 20 minutes south of where I'm working in the greater Boston area. I love when we're doing a great job in supporting the biotechs and healthcare around here, because I know that's affecting my friends, my family, and everyone around me. So I just want to throw those anecdotes in before we kind of get into the Q&A. Damien and I can talk about this stuff forever. We'll inundate you with details. Your eyes will start glazing over, and we'll keep going. So seriously, reach out to us if you have questions. If you want to pick our brain, if you think you're going to be modifying your lab space, if you think you want to expand your lab space, Damien and I either will have a solution for you or we can find the solution for you. And that's what I really want to get across here. So with that, Emma, I'll pass it over to you, unless Damien, you have anything else to say, but I think you've said plenty. So I will stop my ramble.
Yeah, thanks guys. That was great from both of you. And I echo the sentiment, Damien. What a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much. I will let everyone know that by navigating to the materials tab on the top right of your screen, it's near your chat button. You will be able to view and download that helpful resource of some of the tables and graphics that we shared in this presentation. So you can really zoom in, like Damien was talking about, into that the bacteria virus graphic that we shared. We do have a ton of questions coming in though, so I am going to get started with the Q&A, and that document will be available and sent out to you after the presentation as well, so you can always check that out later. Damien, along the lines of safety, we are getting a ton of questions about safety here. So just from a general perspective, how can an organization ensure that the folks that they are sending back into these rooms after decontamination is safe? And on the flip side of that, are there any things to look out for, things to think about that a space might not be safe to go back into after these activities?
Yeah, definitely having active monitoring is probably going to be one of the key elements in making sure your people are safe and making sure that they have the appropriate PPE. So obviously, we definitely do everything we can to contain a lot of this, especially like the chlorine dioxide. Like I explained, it could be it works great, and sometimes it works a little too good. So definitely having the appropriate PPE and having the active monitoring. In a former life, we had some monitoring, and then maybe I had a Draeger pump, and it took me 20 pumps, and I'm like, this is nuts. I'm pumping it 20 times, but I'm been exposed. It took me a couple minutes to pump it 20 times, and now I'm all exposed to something in which I knew it was there already. So that's definitely something that we employ. We employ active monitoring so we can see in real time what the concentrations, and honestly, that'd probably be my biggest recommendation, is just to have active monitoring that reports in real time.
Yeah, and just to add to that a bit, so we use D16 portasens units, and depending on what we're using for the decontaminant, we'll have different sensors. So we're actively monitoring everything in real time. Staff have APRs, PAPRs with relevant cartridges as needed. And then, of course, we're always following the standards provided to us, which generally state that we're notifying our clients that we are going to be doing this process and that they should notify their staff. We're providing signage, danger, we're using XYZ chemical, do not enter. So we are providing information ahead of time and then actively monitoring. And then generally, our decontamination process isn't considered done until those gas fog concentrations fall below a certain level, which is provided to us through the standards or manufacturers. So as long as you are following our instructions and using trained personnel, you should be very safe. To Damien's point, chlorine dioxide is a true gas. So we're always warning people that this is a true gas. We need tight control of your HVAC if we're doing, HVAC decons. But again, we're communicating this all in advance. And at the end of the day, we are hopefully keeping you safe by following our processes and the standards properly.
Yeah, thank you both for that answer. And it kind of brings up another point that someone here is asking about, but what are some of the recommendations or requirements even for PPE for someone to be wearing when they're performing decons, specifically about IHP, but just in general?
So generally we'll utilize a full, depends on the situation, but we'll use a full face respirator with a P100 cartridge. So a lot of the P100 cartridges in our instance is going to protect us from the VHP. It's going to protect us from the chlorine dioxide. If we were going to be utilizing the formaldehyde, then it protects you from that as well. And then it has a HEPA filter for any kind of microbial contaminants. So we use the full face. We also have the PAPR. We also have PAPRs that utilize the same protection. Obviously, the PAPR is a little different, typically used in a BSL-3 type environment, but it does give you a little more flexibility, isn't so cumbersome. So we kind of do a mix or. So really, I would take a look at whatever your process is, and comfort can definitely be, if someone's going to be in something all day, they probably want a PAPR because the full face is just a little much. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for that answer. Moving along on the safety topic still, we do have a couple questions coming in about food safety and safety when in facilities that are doing cannabis production, actually. So would these methods be food safe and cannabis safe, or is this something where you would need to look into something else? Can you just shed a little bit of light on that?
As far as cannabis, again, it's going to be one of those things that kind of fall under the food and drug. It really is going to be key for you
to be honest, I think I'd want to research that a bit more. I don't know if you have, but I haven't actually encountered that question.
It would fall kind of under like organic certification. So then definitely I'd want to make sure that you make sure that you put it on your list and have whoever's in charge of that just to make sure that it's going to meet the qualifications of it. I get it. My previous life, I've been in Colorado. I know there's a bunch. Well, let's put it this: clean rooms are for more than just manufacturing pharmaceuticals. A lot of these clean rooms, they are growing cannabis. Depending on where you are, I know for a fact they're in Colorado because that's where I've tested them. But yeah, so yeah, like James said, I would say it meets. You have to have an organic certification. Check that list. Organic system plan, and make sure that's approved by your certifier before you use any kind of these disinfectants, because definitely that is an issue with some of the things that they would spray on the plants. Obviously, some of those can turn into they are carcinogenic. So yeah, you kept all the bugs off it, but now someone was just looking to smoke some cannabis. Now they're basically getting some cancer. So you got to watch out for that.
Yeah, and this Q&A process should be anonymous on our end at least. So whoever is asking this question, if you want to reach out, we'd love to have a deeper conversation and try to figure out some solutions for you. And then just to kind of wrap up the food safety question, we're actually working with a client outside of the New England area to work on some lyophilizers. So we'll be hopefully decontaminating with our IHP system these lyophilizers specifically for food safety. So just throwing that out there as an anecdote. And yeah, Emma, maybe we're ready for the next question.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you guys for that answer. I was seeing a couple of questions come in about like what exactly the process would look like. Would someone have to come to us and say, hey, I know I need XYZ decontaminated? Would they have to say what type of decontamination they need? So if you guys could just run through potentially what the process of working with us would look like and how a risk assessment might fit into that. I got a couple mentions of that as well.
Yeah, no problem. So this is our bread and butter. This is honestly what I like to do. I love to work with my clients and find that best solution. So yeah, generally it really depends. It's nuanced. I'm sure you guys are going to get sick of hearing nuanced, answers, but let's say you just need 2 biosafety cabinets decontaminated. I can send you out a risk assessment form. If it's standard biologics, it should be pretty straightforward. If it's non-ducted, it should be pretty straightforward. We're most likely going to use chlorine dioxide with that. We'll ask you if you need biological indicator analysis. These systems are generally validated, so you don't always need that. We're going to basically walk you through those initial steps. That's a pretty easy situation. Other times, let's say we're trying to decommission a lab so that we can move across the street or move across states, wherever it may be. That's where we start to get a bit custom. You might have 10 biosafety cabinets, a vivarium, and a waste room that you want to get decontaminated. Can we decontaminate the 10 biosafety cabinets with chlorine dioxide? And then can we hit your vivarium with IHP? Can we potentially move biosafety cabinets into the vivarium and then treat the whole space with IHP? There's different nuances here that I don't want to get just like a straight, this is how we will do it answer. And that's the whole point of our custom solution here. So in those kinds of situations, I or Damien would come and walk through the site. We'll get an idea of the room dimensions. We might ask for drawings, electrical, whatever it might be. We might be asking for stuff like that so we can come up with a proper plan. One thing that didn't come up here with the IHP is it's very volume dependent. It can treat about 3,600 cubic feet at once, which is 360 square feet. So a little, what's that, 15 by 15 feet or so. So one go with the IHP system in about an hour, excluding the aeration time, can treat that kind of space. So we're going to ask you a bunch of questions, see if we can do a walkthrough, try to get an idea of the space. And we might intend to run it with IHP, see the space, and actually say, oh no, we might want to subcontract this with sodium hypochlorite. We might want to hit this side with chlorine dioxide, run biological indicators, and then also use IHP here. So a bit of a nuanced answer, but a lot of these are nuanced questions. I think the main point here is we'll send you a risk assessment. We'll ask you a ton of questions. We might need a space walkthrough, and then we'll come up with that custom solution that I'm sure you're looking for.
Since I have the audience too, not all units need to be decontaminated. So essentially, here's an instance where maybe they have a area like in a hospital pharmacy where you're essentially compounding hazardous drugs. Well, guess what? That's where you're compounding your hazardous drugs. There's probably not going to be really any kind of biological hazards, or so then the decontamination might not be a great idea. We're going to have to go with a PPE filter change. We're going to have to go in there and approach it to kind of a different aspect because so I've been in chemical plants where they have a micro lab, and then all of a sudden every year I discovered, hey, we're decontaminating these hoods to change filters, and it turns out like, hey, they're not getting loaded every year from biologics, they're getting loaded every year because they're essentially dispensing chemicals in the unit. So it really kind of runs the gamut. It's really why it's kind of key to kind of partner with someone that's kind of been there, done that, to kind of to pick out, say, whoa, okay, like, I get what the tried and true is here, but you got to kind of look. And that's why we do the risk assessments. That's why we will essentially we'll send out a paper to you to kind of list what you have, so we could kind of come back to you with the best approach on how you should, or what we recommend that you do to take care of your need there. So.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And quick question that kind of came up when you guys were talking through that, but generally, is there a recommendation for frequency of decontaminations for various machineries or by type, or if you could have any recommendations, if possible? Can you just elaborate on that maybe a little bit more?
Yep, definitely another loaded question, but loaded questions are good. It lets us ramble. We've seen clients who do quarterly knockdowns, switching between sport clans and VHP, for instance. They're a client who, I'm not speaking specifically here, but they might be a client who has regular drug production runs. They may have seen a contamination in the past, and they don't want to ever see that again. So quarterly, they're going to have the whole space knocked down with a different chemical so that the microbes aren't becoming resistant. Yeah, it's a tough answer. For instance, biosafety cabinets. If we need to make repairs, those aren't generally going to be routine, but we will need to decontaminate the HEPA filter in order to make sure our staff and then the local staff are safe. That isn't usually routine, but then if you take Damien's example, where they're regularly loading a biosafety cabinet with APIs or something, then you might need to have a routine yearly cadence.
Yeah.
There's one more example. I guess I'll just take the drug production example a little bit further. If you know that you have a drug production run of 3 months and then you have a shutdown, maybe you do your maintenance during that shutdown, you're usually going to have a whole space decontamination there to make sure that the subcontractors who are coming in are safe, and you're obviously not getting your APIs everywhere. Damien, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, I think the key takeaway from that is a lot of these are custom solutions. Like, everyone's needs are a little slightly different than everyone else's. So you can't just always apply a blanket across the board. Like some of these pharmaceutical places, they're a contract manufacturer, so they're producing something for someone, and then they need to get a complete cleaning. So then that way they can produce. They don't want cross contamination. So it really all depends. Honestly, I don't want to say, hey, yeah, do it every year, and because it's really dependent on your need and what you're doing. And honestly, we'd rather just have a discussion with you instead of just saying, hey, this is the cadence because this is going to make us the most money. No, we want to do what's right for you. We're being truthful here. We want to partner with you so that we can hear about all these different scenarios and we can come up with the solution. We want to leverage our years of experience and help you. At least give you recommendations, and then give you a path, and then see if everything works right for you, and then we can get out there and get the work done for you. That's what we're looking to do.
Yeah. And just to add a little more nuance, there's lab best practices and sterile techniques. So let's say you're a small R&D lab, you have super keen PhDs who are super on top of their sterile technique and their wipe downs. You might never need a decon if you didn't ever put cardboard in your cold room. If you were one of the, you might never need that. You might never have contamination issues. I can't personally say that I have seen that, right? But there's just so much nuance here, and there's so many little steps. There's the user errors. Was this building designed in 1950 and they never even considered a gas tight damper? This is a personal experience. Is your ductwork described as Swiss cheese? Is your building described as Swiss cheese? There's so many nuances here that, again, we want to give you a straight answer, but sometimes we just can't.
Thank you both so much. That was an incredibly informative event. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I know we have so many questions coming in, so apologies if we did not get to your question. I just wanted to reiterate again, thank you, Damien and James, for answering so many questions and for such an informative event. And thank you to everyone for attending today. After we end the event, you will be directed to a very short survey. This same survey will also be sent out with a follow-up email that will contain a copy of the presentation and the recording, likely tomorrow. We would greatly appreciate any feedback you have on the event, including any ideas you may have for future topics or things you want to learn about. In your follow-up email, you'll also receive the link to the compiled resources in case you did not have a chance to download it from the materials section during the event. Please feel free to reach out to us with any further questions that you may have. Thank you for all your participation, and we greatly look forward to seeing you at upcoming Triumvirate environmental events. Take care.